Well, what we did was we covered broad and we narrowed. Look at that. Look at that. We narrowed.
That's right.
And I'm going to bring us back to something that we can all agree on. That's, of course, Lord of the Rings. And we can say that the story of the church is one made up of people that we hear the stories about, but ultimately is made up by people you never know. And it's so many non-serious, non-important moments that make up the culmination of God acting out the plan of salvation through the history of the church for the past 2,000 years. And you know, I'm not including Old Testament just to have a bifurcation point on the cross, but that when recently I was reading Hobbit with my oldest for the second time because I started too young because I wanted to read it and realized that was a bad mistake. But one of the things that she got out of it that was unprompted was how much prominence Bilbo plays in The Hobbit, obviously called The Hobbit. But a lot of the story, he's just kind of like, other than a few things, he just kind of bumbles along, and he's not really important, especially for the last part of it, where like there's a war that starts and stops. He has almost nothing to do with it, but he's also vitally important in that, and you can't tell. You can't tell. Okay, if he wasn't here, if he was here, what does that mean? Well, he's just going to go back to the Shire and be an important person there, but try not to be an important person. I think there's a lot of truth in there for how we should view history, because we tend to focus on the wars, we tend to focus on the presidents, we tend to focus on the heroes of the nation, and we do that in church history as well. But there's so much that involves no-name people doing nothing of importance other than exactly what God told us to do. And that's what moves us through time, and hopefully with the proper understanding, but the sheep will be called and the goats will be called as well and then departed. But we need to not focus on the big names, but focus on our own path, our own illuminated gospel, the word illuminating the path before us, and we'll realize probably at the end of time exactly more so how we impacted all the people behind us who followed in that path of light. So we started with everything, and we got to the individual, and then we'll back out again. So ultimately, we want to, of course, always point back to God. He's the ultimate mover. He's the one who knows all things, is everywhere, sustains all things, brings about salvation to all people. We're faithful in carrying out that message, but we're unimportant, but we're also very important in that carrying out. So,
and I think if I want to make a case for optimism too, whenever I can, to be like, there's a sense of defeatism, I think, in a lot of conservative Christians. I was I got to speak at a church camp just last week, and the theme of the week seemed to be like, man, everything just kind of sucks. And I got to the point, and my last message was I was going to talk about that Great Commission, the Great Commission, and going to tell the world. And I was like, I had to rewrite my message a little bit, because I was like, you know what? Everyone knows, go into the world and make disciples of all nations. They know this one. They've heard it at every single talk, every single time they've come to camp. And so I talked about it a little bit, be like, okay, you need to go tell friends about the gospel. But then I was like, hey, I want to highlight three really important things from this passage that usually gets passed over. One, the person talking to them is a guy who 3 days before was dead. Like, this is a guy who died. Like, it doesn't get more bleak than that. As far as messianic calls go, that's a pretty massive failure to end up crucified and killed. This is a guy talking to them, and he is up walking around talking to them. He is giving them a commission. He's a guy who died and he got up again. Like, if you think that everything could not get, like, if you think everything is so black that it could not possibly get better, the guy who we're following died and then he got up again. Like, this is a religion of the impossible. That's what we do. That's what Christianity does, is we do the impossible. Second thing, when he comes to them, the first thing he says to them is not go make disciples of all nations. He says, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. You go, why? You go, why? Because he has all authority. Jesus does not become Lord. We don't make him Lord. We don't hope he'll become Lord. We don't cross our fingers that maybe he'll come into lordship. He is Lord. And he's Lord now in the dark time. And he is still taking this world. He is still leading this world to its glorious conclusion. And so, and third, that it ends with, and behold, I am with you always to the end of the age, that we don't go alone in this world. We are never alone. The darkness that we walk in with the light of the world within us. And so, to jump on a Tolkien quote, because you started it, Frodo says, I wish it need not have happened in my time. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Could be that Christianity and the United States is going to fall. What are we going to do? We were given this time. American Christians, in this time, in this place, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to hide away in our holes? Or are we going to go with the confidence of those who are following a resurrected Lord who is with us everywhere we go? Go be conquerors. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Anarchist Bible Study is linked below.
That's right.
The messages for the State of Theology will be linked below as well. caveofthecross.com for the episode with all the links to all the books mentioned. I don't think I have to link Lord of the Rings, but I'm sure we can find it. Next week, we'll probably resume our 10th book that has been announced last week or the week before, because it's probably episode 2 of this one, because Josh talks a lot. The fact that we got 2 episodes only out of it is the miracle of the night. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Where can we find your amazing Twitter? What's the handle there?
At IOWANCAP, IOWANCAP.
He's one of 6 people that I hit the bell on, so that I can always like his stuff. So I can be one of 3 people that will always like his stuff.
Appreciate that.
Josh, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time with my better half, Tony.